Three, two, one. Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another expat. Today we are recording episode 23, and for some reason I always need to be saying these numbers. I'll just start with some topics. First, the Natural History Museum in Berlin. If you haven't been, you could have a look. I've been a few times, and recently I went there with some friends that were visiting. So I'll just share a few things about the Natural History Museum. First of all, they have cool dinosaur heads there, some really nice skeletons. Do you call it a skeleton if it's not an entire body? I guess so. They also have some skeleton heads on display, but also they have entire bodies. They actually have the tallest dinosaur assembled together. There is a Guinness World Record next to it. The neck is so high, you are kind of feeling bad that it has to take all that space, almost hitting the ceiling. But it's really, really nice, very impressive. If you like big skeletons, what a weird topic, but the London Natural History Museum also has a huge skeleton. It's not a dinosaur, it's actually a freaking blue whale, an entire skeleton of a blue whale. And I think the best part is where they've put it. It's actually hanging from the ceiling. The main hall or the entrance area somehow of the London Natural History Museum has an entire huge blue whale skeleton hanging on top of you. Look it up. It looks pretty amazing. And if you want a fun fact about it, because why not? They actually hosted an event there that was a silent disco. If you look at how this place looks like, you will understand that it's unique. A huge hallway, very old building, beautiful architecture, and a freaking whale hanging on top of you, making you feel tiny. And yes, they did an event there, a silent disco with three DJs. Such a smart idea. I'd love to figure out who thought of this and what was the pitch deck. What was the selling they had to do to convince a museum like that to host that event? But yes, anyway, Berlin Natural History Museum. Listen, speaking of, the dinosaur there, I find it very lame that, the closest thing today that we have to dinosaurs are actually chicken and ostriches. How pathetic is that? Like, I really do feel bad for the dinosaurs. You're looking at that huge beast all the way to the ceiling. I don't remember the meters, so I would lie if I say, but it just looks like a, I don't know, four-story building. So that could be, I don't know, 18 meters. But yeah, I just feel so bad at them. They dominated this planet, and now look our ass. Like our cars are running on their dead bodies, decomposing, and they're their closest descendant. Like sometimes you think, even if I'm gone, the lineage will continue, or the ones after me might do better. Well, if you're a dinosaur, you're into some pretty bad news, because the closest descendant you have is the chicken. It's sold in every single corner of the world, in souvlaki, in chicken nuggets, in McDonald's, even in salads, in Caesar salads. And let's not talk about the ostriches either, because they are not doing much better. I feel we only keep ostriches still because they are so weird. Like, it's such a weird animal to see, from its legs and its claws all the way up. It's let's just say that evolution gave up on ostriches a long time ago, but somehow that model still works. But yeah, I don't know why you keep them around. I'm not saying they should not be, but it feels like that one odd friend. You still have to just remember that life comes in many colors, and that's a good reminder. Ostriches are a bit like that. They're so dumb. I don't like shitting on animals. I know that in a previous episode, I think it was episode 17, Birds, Bees, and AI Overlords, where I was shitting on poor beetles for not being able to flip. Like, if they flip around, they die. But yeah, this is not a series of me roasting animals, but ostriches are so dumb that they don't understand if what they're eating is not food. Like, this is a fact. Ostriches aren't very picky eaters. They will often just eat anything, including inedible objects like rocks, metal, and even sand. At the same time, this is not me, this is Quora, this is facts. Ostriches have poor memory, and when we say poor memory, we mean really bad memory. They forget the simple things. Instance, they can forget, listen to this, the location of their nests or the eggs that they have laid, which can lead to them abandoning their eggs without realizing it. So this is it. This is what's left of the dinosaurs. An animal that, many dangers can lead an animal to extinction, but, forgetting where they put their children, how can that be one of them? I don't know how they made it for so long. I mean, I know the same way that I did. There is this Greek saying that whoever doesn't have a brain has legs. I heard that a few times in life. I want to believe I had both brains and legs, but in any case, yes, they can run up to 60 kilometers per hour, which is pretty good. This is what I would be told when I was a child. If you don't have brains, you have legs. There was literally one teacher who allowed me to run from the school to my house and back to bring an essay that I had legitimately forgotten. And I was running so much because she said, if you bring it back before the time is over, I count it as legit, which is such a weird thing to say if you're a teacher. Like, she sent me running on these streets to go to my place as fast as possible. And all I could think running was, you don't have brains, but you have legs. And it felt a bit comforting. Anyway, let's wrap that part up. But Quora even said that ostriches are about as smart as the smartest dinosaurs. So this is also a bit worrying, but aside from that, outside of the museum was a huge pigeon, a pigeon poster that said something in German I didn't recognize, which felt like it was mocking me. It was like a king pigeon situation. And this is because they had a temporary exhibition. I think they decided to display all the birds they had, because that museum has a huge inventory of items. It's where a lot of things would end up from the German exhibitions to a lot of places, but mostly to parts of Africa. But yeah, they decided to display all the birds they had in this side exhibition, which was pretty weird because they had stuffed all of them in these wooden glass cages and they all stood in the glass looking at you. And when I say all, I mean it was really crowded. They could have as many as 50 birds right next to each other. Imagine that there is just a small desk surface and they have 50 owls standing there, all of them looking at you through the glass. Below that, another shelf with 50 sparrows right next to each other or looking at you. It felt like they were out to get you. It felt like they wanted to break the glass and swarm you. But yes, it was also part of showing how much inventory they have. And it's an old museum. It's more than 200 years old, and it's trying to get better at displaying things. But it's telling stories of itself. How it started inventorying things, how they started labeling, how things have evolved during the years in the actual science that goes behind museums and how they catalog. An interesting thing about the museum was that it also mentions colonialism in the entrance, where it talks about some of the specimens that they have, especially in the dinosaur area. Two paragraphs are talking about the Jurassic era and what was happening then. And the other two paragraphs are actually talking about how the fossils we see were excavated from today's Tanzania when it was a part of the German colonialism. I think it was the South Africa, I think they called it, but there were a few parts under the German rule, and they are actually mentioning that not only it's exploring the history of the fossils, but at the same time raising questions around what is the right way to conduct science and how they were obtained. Okay, I mean, it's something to at least mention it. Guch Guch British Museum, making a bit of a dialogue on the practices that were followed at the time. And they excavated 250,000 tons of fossils, which is pretty mind-blowing. But the museum also told the stories of, how they would mix birds because they would get it in the museum, shipped in. But because there is no observation, they hadn't seen them in nature. The people who were tasked into cataloging them, they weren't very sure always. And sometimes they categorized baby birds as new species because they didn't look much like their parents. It also talks about how this is the old way of just displaying things, and now they're looking into ways to display things with a wider understanding about the surroundings. So, for example, for birds, it would be the next step would be to use sounds, have some sort of video, help understand more the natural environment blend instead of just looking at a dead stuffed animal behind a glass. Happy they're asking these questions. I think the most savage moment of the bird part of the exhibition was when they showed chicken. They showed chicken, domesticated, and on top, I shit you not, they had put a screen that was showing rotating roasted chicken. Just dozens and dozens of roasted chicken rotating like in a, kebab place. Just to remind what we do to them. No other bird had any video on top. Overall, cool visit to the museum. They have a huge rocks department with minerals and beautiful, beautiful rocks. You can't believe they can be so beautiful, actually. They're overall expanding. They have a digitizing section, so they try to digitize everything, starting with the insects collection. They want to open more floors, and they have all of this plan to make the museum more accessible to people and to invite communities and to make it more open spaces and gardens. My ask would be, before you do all that, could you please at least put English in the bloody descriptions? There are still so many descriptions in that museum that are only in German. And I understand that displaying cases are pretty old, and some of these things have been there for 200, 150 years, but I'm sure there can be found a way, and this would be kind of like the minimum requirement. They mentioned that the museum had 200K visitors the previous years annually, which is about 700 people per day. I did the math. But now it's almost or more than half a million. So this is more than 2x the people. So they're trying to, keep up. And they mentioned all these super initiatives that will be coming. My low hanging fruit would literally be just help me not have to use Google Lens on my phone for half of the museum. But that's the museum. It's super cool. If you haven't been, you should be. They have a really nice museum shop as well where you can buy real mini fossils and some rocks and some cool minerals. One more experience I want to share is around flea markets. You will see this podcast is quite, I have some time in the summer in Berlin edition. And I love flea markets. I've shared in a previous podcast as well. But actually, even though I really like them, there is also a part that makes me feel uncomfortable. There was a question yesterday in a question game I played that said, what puts you out of your comfort zone? And you had to answer that to others. And that was an interesting one to take, maybe one for you to think as well. But yes, I realize now that flea markets also put me out of my comfort zone when there is too much squishy, and trying to find your way and changing your pace and stopping. I mean, okay, you probably have picked this up from the episode with me going to a Greek festival, thinking of techniques to stop the crowd movement. But yeah, I really love flea markets, even the crowded ones. I like being out in the open. I like feeling the weather, the air, the breeze. This one is close to a canal, so there is some of that. And then just being exposed to so much stimuli. Like you're seeing all of these people, all of these different outfits, all of these different things they decided to bring forward and try to sell to the world. I find it very exciting getting to see all of these things that, yeah, people have out there and actually buying things. For me, it's the true Berliner experience to get something from a flea market that looks really cool and you might not need or use it. And then eventually, one day, after sitting for a long time, it will be your turn to sell it into a flea market, making a round circle. Something I like a lot in flea markets as well is that there is the designated area where they have the wooden booths and they are, selling things by, I guess, having paid the organizer or something. But then, before that starts and after it finishes, there are also these ad hoc draft kind of setups where people try to also sell stuff because if you're there, then why not? And it always looks like a level below the market. What I mean is that they don't really have nice stands. They just put a cloth on the ground, put their shit around, and like, okay, what do you want? And there is a category that I like, which is little kids. There are little kids that are selling their toys in these places. And I think in almost every flea market I've been, I have always seen kids that have just put up all of their toys, whether it is small rubber animals or comic books or kids' books, some board games, electronics, their Pokemon cards that realized will never be rare, not even in 50 years, because they're young. And the real rare Pokemon is the true ones, the ones I have. So sucks to be them. So they're trying to sell their worthless paper for a few pennies to get whatever is trending right now. But I like these little kids. They're also, I don't think anyone would do anything to them. They're accompanied by their parents who have found a way to occupy themselves by reading a book or being around and just checking in on them every now and then. I don't know, maybe I have always been intrigued by business in a way, but I love the idea of giving that responsibility to a kid, of explaining that this is a way that you can, make use of something that doesn't have use anymore, have them choose what it is that they don't want to be using anymore, understand the concept of recycling in a way, like something you don't want can still be useful for someone else and you can make something out of it. Little bit of bargaining skills, little bit of this social weirdness that kids have that cannot really interact. I don't know. I find it quite fun. Little illegal kids running their businesses. But one thing that is tricky for me in flea markets is actually availability. What I mean is that a lot of the things are not really good for me. It's my size and weight, and I don't know, I'm 180, weighing about 90 kilos, and I think that there are so many options for girls and women that go to these places. It's just easier to have. Also, I have to say, male clothing weighs more. Like you need to carry more. It's more heavy. It's more sometimes. Okay, just sometimes it's more difficult to have it around in the same size. You could have so many options for lightweight dresses or half tops or whatever it is. So I always have a hard time. When I like something, it's usually not going to fit me. And here's my technique. Here's the new thing I'm doing. If you're going to flea markets, if you have the same problem, I start to look at the people selling and I try to see if there is someone with my BMI behind the booth. And this is such a quicker way than trying to see the things around. So today I just went to one, looked the same height, looked the same, I don't know, width as me. And I said, okay, I think here it will be easier to find something. So what I want to say with this is that if you are 180 centimeters plus, then please go start a flea market stand. We need more of you there. We need more male representation. I will do my part. I swear, let's think of the months. I swear that in 6 months' time from now, oof, tough promise, I will have had my first participation in the flea market. If I was in Greece, I have so many clothes there. I would do, not a flea market, I would do a giveaway. I would do a kilo shop. I would say, get a kilo of this and give me whatever you want. But I think I have enough things here to also give it a go. I like the idea. I would probably bring some artwork as well, because why not? If someone wants to buy one of my quick drawing sketches from all the drink and draw live drawing events I go, so be it. And there are people, there is a woman in the one I go that does 3 minute portraits. And that's her thing. She has her stand, says on top, 3 minute portrait, pay as you feel like, which is always the best trap. And then she uses some Japanese ink and brushes and really cool paper to do them. I would love to do that. Probably too stressful. I can sell things I've already done. Last point, flea markets. What I love is the way people decorate their booth. Because a flea market is a little bit like the jungle. You don't have rules. It's very crowded, heavy on odors, but you need to attract. You need to be the birds that are dancing and flashing colors and trying to just a great performance to get attention. I've seen all sorts of booth decorations. My favorite one today said, if you spend more than €10, you get a free Prosecco. And behind it, there were people having a really good time running their stand. Looked successful. I liked the idea. Maybe I do it in mine. I saw one else that had a box. They were selling clothes, and sometimes they display some, but they don't have a lot of space to display anything, so they have boxes. And some boxes say things like, everything you take, €3, or a box for €2, a box for €5, and whatever is there costs that much. Someone had a box that said, stuff from my ex, €3, which was such a great marketing technique. But if you are in Berlin, flea markets are around, you probably know it more than me. What a nice thing to enjoy, browsing around, getting your brain high from all the activity going on, checking cool stuff out like the little kid criminals trying to hook you up with a Pikachu card and all of that. In a few random things I wanted to mention without particular order, I had some friends over, and when you have friends over, I'm from Greece, people want to see Berlin, I become a tour guide. This is what happens for those who have this role. Kudos, you're good friends. For me, it's quite a fun one. I like showing people around, and I actually find it pretty beautiful actually to see people experience a journey for the first time and have the different impressions when I take them to a space. So it's also interesting for me. I watch people watch something and I look forward to see how they find it or what impression it leaves on them, because it's very easy to get used to things and it's very refreshing to be reminded how it is to see something for the first time. So there's something amazing about that. But last time I have been doing the tour guide, there's a lot of walking involved, a lot of metro, sorry, I meant U-Bahn, S-Bahn, blah, blah, blah. So this time I decided to go my way. You know me, I'm an avid biker now. I'm biking around. I have my bike and my helmet and my basket in front, and my alter ego is someone who's strolling around with the bike in the summer. So I got my bike and I got my friends to get an app that they can get bikes as well. And so that was the perfect blend. So much less boring. I could plan interesting routes, get from one part of the town to the other through cool stops. And yeah, the days are nice. So I definitely recommend it. Better than sitting in a sweaty U-Bahn, better than making blisters walking around. And so much fun to show the city, because biking from one place to another, you also go through different neighborhoods, quiet places, parks, busy streets. You get to experience a lot of life as it happens, and more of your senses are also present. The side note on my bike life, I always bike with a helmet. I look ridiculous. I know it. I look out of place. Don't care. Love my brains. And now I have decided to install a mirror in my bike. I already have a phone holder, a basket, a thing that the chain gets curled up and very tightly sits there with some magnets so I can always take it in and out. And now a mirror came. And I get some laughs about how much I keep adding on my bike, but it feels great. I think it's the best move to do it. I'm driving a motorbike since I was 18. So many accidents happen because we miss these split seconds. And when I'm biking, there's a lot of turning my head around, seeing if someone is coming to overtake me, or yeah, just having awareness of what's happening behind you and turning your head around all the time while keeping your bike straight is, I don't know, it takes time, it takes my attention. I mean, not even swimmers can do that and stay in lane. Have you seen swimmers? They have left and right, they're just guardrailed all the way because they know if you're trying to go ahead, but you always need to turn your head sideways, then you might go off track. So if they can do it, who am I to do it? I installed a mirror and I feel great. On more random Berlin tips, we went to the radio tower at the top. I know this is very cliche, especially for those who have been in this city for a long time, but the Berlin Radio Tower, the most iconic, how do you call that, monument, landmark. You can visit the observation deck, which is where you can go around and walk and look. But it also has a restaurant at the very top. And that restaurant has an entrance ticket. And the entrance ticket of the restaurant is not that much more expensive than actually going to the observation deck. So here's the deal. If you book for the restaurant, you get a ticket for both places, the restaurant and the observation deck, but also the restaurant rotates. So you sit by a window eating while the whole place rotates, and you can just look outside and see unobstructed views of everything. It's like magic. You don't have to walk around to squeeze with other people to try and bend over to see what is happening. Nope. You're just sitting there eating, and all you have to do is look to your right. The scenery is changing. It's super nice to be with someone and talk around and show them stuff. I totally recommend it if you have friends or family joining. It has been always a very memorable experience, and the difference to the ticket than going to the deck below is, I think, less than 10 euros, maybe even less. And you don't need to buy at the restaurant, you don't need to buy like a menu, or you can just go a la carte, take a beer, take a starter, have it cheap. The quality is good. The portions are a bit small. The whole decor of that restaurant is futuristic 60s because this tower was built in the 60s during the whole space race situation. It was actually built by East Germany, not the West. I always ask whoever comes, and they always guess it must be the West that built something so cool, and difficult and big and advanced and engineering and all that. But no, it was actually the East. If I recall correctly, they also wanted to paint it red, but that couldn't work out. I don't remember why. It is very much inspired by Sputnik, the satellite that the Soviet Union had sent to space at that time. So, yes, they wanted something big to show the Riz. Riz, like charisma, like Generation A wording. I'm starting to. I don't know how you throw these words around. But if you don't know, there is a new generation after Generation Z. They're called Generation Alpha. And apparently, the reason that where they have become most famous is for the weird words and jargon they are using. Riz and the skibidi and else and dilulus, or however you call this. If you don't know, you might not even want to look it up. It's way too much work to understand all these new words. But anyway, for those who advocate against going to the radio tower, say totally worth it. Plus, the elevator takes you 200 meters up. The facts I like to throw out is also that actually the Berlin Tower is higher than the Eiffel Tower. And a lot of people don't guess that just because the Eiffel Tower is it looks more complex, it looks more massive. So you think it's higher, but it's actually 300 meter, 330 with the tip, while the total length of the Berlin TV Tower is 368 meters. Two last facts before I shut my mouth. One, in Switzerland, they have a lot of good things going on for them. But one that I want to mention I saw online and it blew my mind is that in Bern, which is actually the capital of the country, for those who didn't know, it's not Zurich, it's Bern. Am I telling this to myself because I didn't know and I had to Google it? We will never know. But apparently there is a river going through the city, Aare River. And during the summer, what a lot of people do, they are commuting through the river. And when I say commuting through the river, I don't mean with some sort of a taxi or even a canoe. No, they just go with a swimsuit. They put everything in some air-flowing bags and they just let the river take them. They're just floating away to their work and the commute. There are small services. They give people these waterproof bags. You put all your stuff inside and then you just lay down and it takes you. It looks so amazing. Looks like the best life. I wish I could commute to work by being in the water and not even having to swim. I mean, this is quite a dream. But I'll let you go here. I'll wrap this up. As you can understand, this is very heavy Berlin oriented. I hope that's fine. I'm not taking any time off of this podcast. I will always bring them every weekend. And these weekends in August, most people are on vacation. And so the mood and the themes are a little bit more around that. Blah, blah, blah. Why am I even telling you? I hope you have a great time listening to this. Thanks for staying by. If for whatever reason you like what you're hearing, you stayed all this time, you're hearing the last seconds, so why not give it one more push and like it or follow it, or I don't even know whatever you have interaction, bring some so the algorithm does its thing. I have a few reviews coming up on Spotify, which feels pretty cool, and we have a stable audience at this point, so huge love for that. Keep it going. You're doing amazing. Wishing you best temperatures, good times. And if you ever feel that life is rough and you cannot push through, just remember that ostriches are one of the longer lasting animals. If they can do it, so can we. Until next week, goodbye.